Good evening. Welcome to this month's Town Administrator's Report. I'm David Watts Jr., and with me is our Town Administrator, Steve Maio. Steve, welcome.
How are you, David?
Good. Waiting for spring.
Waiting for spring. Well, today's not bad.
And then there's tomorrow.
Then there's tomorrow. Yeah. Today
So-
being what, the 18th? April 18th?
April 18th.
12 days before town meeting, and we do have our book
Yes.
all ready to roll.
Yes. Yes, and town meeting starts April 30th this
April
year.
30th at 7 p.m. at the Galvin Middle School.
Excellent. And we have a total of 25?
25 articles, yeah.
That's actually short for an annual.
Probably average, but I
Yeah.
think we have a lot of zoning articles here, or a lot of bylaw articles, so they may seem longer.
But among the articles, and we started the discussion last month a little bit, now we have the official word.
Right.
But among the articles, Article 11 is one that'll be of particular interest to senior citizens in the town.
Yes.
And first, let's define what a senior citizen is under this article.
Yeah, I'm not even so sure that it's just of interest to senior citizens, because I think it's really part of the social contract. So I think it should be of interest to anybody. But this article describes a senior citizen at the age 65 or older, according to this article.
And what exactly is this article going to do to benefit those senior citizens?
What we've really struggled with over the past, I shouldn't say just Wakefield, every city and town have struggled with the fact that there are rising costs of health care, rising costs of providing police and fire services, rising cost of education, rising cost of DPW services. And Wakefield, like most of your cities and towns, the price tag for that, the cost of that, the payment for that falls on the residential taxpayer.
Right.
Residential and commercial taxpayer, and it's linked to the property tax. So Wakefield, like many cities and towns, have experienced the fact that we have a very valued and honorable and really active senior population. Senior defined by the state as over 65,
Right.
not by me, who do have some difficulty in remaining in their homes because of taxes. As taxes goes up, I mean, they're not making a lot of money on any of the money that they have in the bank right now because of where the interest rates are. They probably don't have a mortgage, luckily, for the most of them.
Right.
Thank God, I hope most of them don't. So taxes are a big nut. So they're looking at $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year in real estate taxes. Board of Selectmen, I've talked about for years. We've talked about it for years. How do we help make it a little bit easier for people that are so valued like this to remain in their homes? So we've been kicking this around and working very closely with our assessor, Victor Santinello, who's done a fabulous job with this. And he's kind of modeled this program after programs I've done in a few other communities. It's a way of helping seniors who qualify under the Massachusetts tax circuit breaker. So if they make certain income requirements and what have you, they can receive up to $1,070 off of their real estate taxes, off of their income taxes from the state. We've come up with a program here that we would match that. We would match up to that on their local real estate taxes. And I think it's a great way of maybe knocking $1,000 off of people's real estate taxes to live in Wakefield. I think the selectmen do too. And what they need to do is they need to be at least 65. If there are two owners, one can be 60 and the other one needs to be 65. They have to own and occupy the property. Okay, so this isn't for our residential landlords that maybe have multiple units and they're renting it out. Okay,
Or someone who's living in those units.
Yeah, two-family would be fine, obviously. They have to have lived in the town of Wakefield for at least 10 consecutive years. Okay. Reason why we put that in there is because we didn't want people moving in here. This sounds great, let's move in from out of town. We wanted to take care of our own on this. It doesn't have to be the same home for 10 years. You could have downsized or sold or bought a condo, but you had to be a homeowner in here for 10 years. And you had to qualify for the state circuit breaker and look at that. And we would look at that, and you could get a reduction, I guess, for lack of a better word, off of your residential real estate tax bill of up to $1,070 a year, which is what the state pays now. If it went up to $1,100, we'd match to $1,100, so because they changed that yearly. Here is the kicker on this. So the question is, how do we pay for this?
Right. That was going to be my next question. Are we shifting that to younger taxpayers?
Or older taxpayers that don't qualify.
Yeah.
You're shifting it within the residential tax base. So that's our proposal, to shift that within the residential tax base. Based on what we see in other communities, including Reading, which is pretty similar, if 200 people partake in this, which might be a high number, it might be the number, probably you're looking at between $25 and $50 a year on the average tax bill for the rest of the members of the residential class. Is it social engineering? I guess it is social engineering. Is it cost sharing? I think it is cost sharing. I and the Board of Selectmen, I think, really believe that this is a great opportunity to kind of help the people that pave the trail in Wakefield. And I can think of a number of seniors in Wakefield who would really qualify for this, not that would qualify, but that would benefit from this. One thing that I regret is Phyllis Hull isn't here with us, because I think this would have really been something that she would have been interested in, to help people maintain and stay in their homes and what have you. There's a lot of other issues that seniors need to deal with. Maybe giving them a little bit of a reduction on their taxes isn't the worst thing in the world.
Well, and this is one of the issues that Phyllis talked about very often over the years.
Yes.
Is the impact on senior citizens of taxes and fees and.
Yeah, and when you think about it, is that some of the seniors who are living on either, Social Security or pensions, those pensions were done at much lower levels when they retired, and everything has kind of rocketed since, 1990, I guess, 1980, 1990, including the value of the home. And I think part of the issue with maintaining a society on real estate taxes is that it is a little bit regressive. So this does help with that. And I think that the selectmen unanimously approved this and are presenting it. I'm really hopeful that the community embraces this. And what we will then do is we'll ask the state to bless it and to allow it and to adopt it. Few other communities have done this. I see no reason why the state wouldn't adopt it. But I think this is a real way of our taking care of our own. And I'm kind of excited about it. It's one of the more exciting.
Do we have any idea how the state has reacted to similar articles in other communities?
They have approved them.
They have?
They have approved them. And what they have done, and when we've kind of learned from that, is we put a 3-year time frame on this to kind of look at and see how it worked. And then we would have to re-up it or what have you. So I think it's, in my mind, it's something that we can really do positively and proactively and to really help people that need to be helped. Now, there's a lot of people that will not qualify. It's not that you're 65. You need to file your application with the assessors, okay? You need to accompany it with your income tax form, showing that you qualify for the circuit breaker. There is a clause in there that we're going to have say that you have no other substantial assets. So we take an affidavit for that. So if you have a $2 million trust fund or something, it's not fair. But this wasn't for you. This was for the people that didn't have that.
Right.
So that's where we're looking. And I juxtapose it against, and when we started, said it's not just the seniors that might be interested. We do have a number of seniors that defer their taxes. And you can do that. You can do that by, again, applying with the Board of Assessors. But that's still, deferring doesn't mean it's not paid. It means it's paid later on. So you're really pushed out, and you're pushing that onto your, heirs when you sell the property, that there's a big tax bill to pay. This is not something that is deferred. This is something that is deducted. So there isn't that coming back and getting that that money plus interest later on. So I think it's a pretty interesting article. I think it's really going to be, I hope, very well received at town meeting, because I think that just like when the town has gone forward and looked for debt exclusions for a new school,
Sure.
maybe that doesn't benefit the seniors as much. This is kind of a way of helping them and giving it back.
Right.
So
Right.
I think that I think by the way, I think the school benefited everybody, but there are some people that might be thinking didn't. So I think that this is a really nice and exciting and I hope really article that talks about the fabric of our community. We talk about our community being welcoming and giving and trying to help people. I think this will say it all on that right there.
I don't disagree with you. Another one that has been kind of out there for a few years now is Article 19, and this is the Rails to Trails program.
The Rail to Trail is at a point now where we have our engineering, or our hired engineers have actually submitted, it's what called 25 plan design to the Mass Department of Transportation. And what that really means is that the rail trail works when you go along the rail. It works, horizontally. It works vertically. It's going to work on what you're doing and building there. It doesn't mean that the final plans are done. They're really just sketches. They're concepts. But
Right.
The Mass DOT has come out and they've looked at crossings. Wakefield has a number of street crossings. They've looked at what needs to go through the Reedy Meadow, and that's going to be a raised. I'm going to say wooden, but it's not going to be wooden, some sort of a composite platform going through there, and that will be a spectacular part of the trail.
Sure.
It's looked at safety, it's looked at all of these issues. And before the state really puts any more energy and time and frankly, before we can go forward and get some more money and assistance from the state to fine-tune those plans, to really go from that 25 plan design to, construction documents. They want to make sure the town is in for a penny, in for a pound on this thing.
Right, right.
So it's going to ask the town to authorize the Board of Selectmen, and that is the process, to enter into a long-term lease or license with the MBTA to actually build and maintain and have that line.
Right.
So this is where
because they're basically overlaying
exactly
an old B&M right-of-way.
Exactly. That has been abandoned, for lack of a better term.
Well, if it's been abandoned, why does the town have to go through that process?
Well, because the MBTA, although they've abandoned the use of the line, haven't abandoned the ownership of the line. And the railroad's kind of like the Commonwealth of Massachusetts or the town of Wakefield. You can never really take property by abandonment from those entities. You can't take property from the king.
Right.
Well, I think we put the railroad as one of the kings,
Right.
third part of the king. So we need to get, the Board of Selectmen need to enter into a agreement with the MBTA to continue the project, to build the project. So there's no money attached to this, so it's not going to cost anything. So we're not looking for an appropriation, but this is really kind of the lens that because the MBTA and Mass DOT, who has to approve all this, will say, well, geez, if Wakefield doesn't want this, why are we spending all this time having our engineers, our environmental people, our safety people look at this entire project?
Right.
So this is kind of where the rubber meets the road on this to see where are we going to be. We're at that point where it's expected of us. Town council has had a number of conversations with the MBTA, as had myself and Rick Stinson, our DPW director. We've had neighborhood meetings. We've had forums and sessions on it, and this is going to be cloudy in people's minds because it's been a multi-year process.
Yes,
but that's the way these are. These take a long time to go from thought to building because of all of the different things all the components that need to be juggled. So I will tell you that in Wakefield there has been a lot of positive feedback about moving forward on this. At least that's what I've heard.
Not so much in Linfield.
Not so much in Linfield, but I think Linfield's coming around a little bit.
Okay. So the plan is still to go from basically Main Street to the Peabody line.
Might not go all the way to the Peabody line, but would go close up there, maybe a turnaround past the high school, but very close. There are some issues at that far end in Linfield that we frankly don't have here.
What sort of issues?
Well, I think there's some encroachment issues by some of the abutters onto the railroad right away that makes it a little bit more problematic in that area. I think there may be another route that will come either later on or part and parcel of this that would attach to something in Peabody, because the thing is to get all these trails to interconnect at some point. So this is another exciting one. It's been in the works for a while.
Absolutely.
And
there's still a few more, in Wakefield that once existed,
Yeah.
like through Montrose, behind where
Right.
Dunkin' Donuts is now, formerly Montrose Ice Cream.
yes.
That took the line up to Lynn and Salem
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, there is that spur that almost goes up there near, almost to Market Street. So there is actually some talk with the MBTA and with our contractor, or our engineer, about could that ever be expanded and involved into that nice little cutoff where people could, go up there.
Sure.
Think, well, let's get this in first, and we'll worry about that. That isn't even at 0% design yet.
Right.
But that's something that we also are kind of looking at as an additional recreation amenity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Because there was a time when Wakefield had 5 railroad stations.
Oh yeah, very many.
Not that long ago.
Not that long ago. I can vaguely remember them. You remember them better than I do, I think.
Greenwood?
Maybe just a little bit.
Greenwood, which
Yeah.
ended up at Pleasure Island,
Yes.
Railroad Avenue.
Yep.
The Omelet headquarters
Right.
restaurant was the main
It
station.
was. Yeah.
North Avenue,
Yeah.
which has since been redeveloped.
Yep.
And then the 5th station was where Metal Crafters is on Lowell Street.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Very, very exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
And people have been waiting a long, long time for this one. So
Yeah, this has been,
this is pretty
this has
exciting.
been many meetings, many festivals by the lake with showing the line and stuff.
Yep.
That many people donating to help out with this. So it is it's exciting. It's another couple of kind of, interesting things that the town is doing. It's not just budgets, thank God.
Although that's a big part of it.
That's a big part of it.
That's where we're going next.
That's where we are going next.
Let's talk about some of the budgets. One of the big ones that is going to, I'm sure, garner a lot of interest with the townspeople is the public works. For the simple reason that I think more and more people around town are complaining about the roads,
Yes, and this was a real
the condition of the roads.
Right. Most of the money for the roads, for new roads, is in an article, and maybe we want to turn to that. That's
Okay.
Article 15.
Okay.
Okay. We'll, by way of a little bit of background. From years and years ago, maybe 20 years ago, all roadway improvements done, not all, the vast majority of roadway improvement done in many cities and towns was on what's called Chapter 90 money. That's money that the state reimburses the city and towns for road improvement.
Right.
We have asked for years and years, at least the last 10 years, to get, have $300 million by the state every year to be parceled out to the cities and towns. That would mean Wakefield will get $1 million under Chapter 90. That's based on road miles, accepted public way road miles. So each city and town would get a little bit different amount based on that. We would get about $1 million a year. Okay, so for years and years, and I think out of the last 10 years, maybe we got that amount once, maybe once. Normally, we've been gotten about, between 60% and 2/3 of that. So we're always being shorted about $300,000 a year. And when you add that up over 10 years, it's about $3 million short in roads that we haven't had, in our opinion, and in many people's opinion. So a few years ago, maybe about 8 years ago, we did decide as a community, we had an article, we put an extra $200,000 in for roads. And that's kind of, if you pardon the expression, maybe helped us bump along a little bit in there. Do I think it's enough? I don't think it's enough. It's certainly not enough. Everyone does want to do, basically everyone more roads. My only hesitation in going forward has been on a little bit more of this, is that kind of got to look at the whole picture. We got a public safety building coming up. We've got some other items, DPW garage. I don't know, could we have rising costs of healthcare, what have you, in other budgets? Roads maybe kind of did take a backseat, okay? This year, the Board of Selectmen voted to increase that $200,000 to $350,000. I will tell you that the Finance Committee is looking to move that even further to $500,000. So we are going to be discussing at town meeting whether to put in 350 extra in roads on top of the chapter 90 money, or 500,000. It's not the worst argument in the world to have about putting
No.
more money into roads.
Because, you know, talking to neighbors, that seems to be one of the common complaints
Yeah.
is, and especially since this winter, that so
Yeah.
many of the roads are in such
Right.
bad shape. Potholes, weakening areas. You know, some areas like Greenwood Avenue, where I am, is going to be finished this year, and
Right.
that's
Right.
outside of this article.
Well, this is part of it. I mean, we're going to.
Oh, is it?
Well, we're going to finish more. You know, we have a schedule.
Yeah.
This will let us do more on the schedule.
Yeah.
We are going to finish Pleasant Street from, Vernon Street
Yep.
from Water Street to Salem. It's going to be finished this year. That's a pretty tough road too. Salem Street from the train tracks where the rail to trail passes it to really Salem Street all the way down is an issue. Right now, there's a gas line there that needs to be replaced before that'll be done. If the whole underground cable comes through, that'll
Right.
all be done in conjunction with that.
Is this changing from the low pressure gas to the high pressure
Yes.
gas, like they've done in Greenwood?
Right, and have a better line.
Yeah.
Because there is some. So those things need to be done. So I think there isn't anybody that doesn't want to put in more money in roads, myself included. And I did recommend to the Board of Selectmen that we phase that in. If we don't phase it in, you know, it's not going to be the end of the world, to be honest. But I kind of preferred that. Personally, I preferred that approach. But I can see where people are very, really want the roads done. Full disclosure, I hit a pothole today. So I think the gods were telling me something. Had to get my tire
Fix
fixed.
it.
Fix it. So yeah, I had
Fix
to
it
tell
now.
you something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we also are putting more money into sidewalks.
Well, yes.
That's another issue, too.
Our sidewalks on Greenwood
Right.
Avenue are about to be replaced.
That's part of that
The
project.
full length,
Right.
yeah.
So I think that, we're putting an extra, might be an extra $600,000 into roads and sidewalks on top of Chapter 90 money. So it's between $425,000 and $600,000 more on Chapter 90. I don't think that's a bad discussion that we're having at town meeting. It's all within 2.5, and it's all. But we just have to make sure we look at the, we have to look at the horizon and say,
Right.
let's make sure that we're keeping it careful.
And of course, the other side of road repair is snow removal. How do we do this year?
Snow removal. Yeah, we were dodoing great until the month of March hit.
4 nor'easters in a row will
I
do
know.
that.
We will do that to you. It's kind of funny how the seasons have changed. We used to say years ago, if you made it to January 1st with very little snow, you were probably in for a good winter. And then we kind of made it through February. We were okay. We were kind of very happy. We're probably going to end up this year over with a snow and ice overdraft. We've approved $600,000. I'm hopeful that we will only use $450 of that, or thereabouts, but who knows what could happen. We've had snow in May.
Yes,
so
we have.
Let's hope that we don't have that anymore. There's been a few kind of forecasts lately. We might get snow. I keep saying we've banned snow. So that is, so if that comes in, that's a help because we've accounted for $600,000. It'd be nice to not to have that amount in there either. So that has, that's always a damper when that comes in on those February storms.
Of course, the other budget that everybody's going to be interested in, because it's such a necessity within not just Wakefield but every community, is the school department.
Yeah.
And that's become more challenging this year because the state actually cut money to the special education.
Yeah, it's again really unfortunate that, and these numbers are Chapter 90 for the roads and the SPED circuit breaker account. These are not even on the cherry sheet that we go by, and even that has been flat. That used to be probably 20% of our budget was covered by the state on the cherry sheet. That's dropped to 10, okay, because the state has gone, on a downward slant.
Right.
So with these not helping, so the circuit breaker for special ed, says at a certain point of time, certain cost point, the state will pick up, is obligated under the state constitution to pick up 75% of the special ed costs. So that hasn't been happening, number one. I think it's happened once in the last 10 years. This particular fiscal year we're in now, the state is picking up, at this point, about 65% of our special ed costs, or thereabouts, which means that we, and it's not just Wakefield, it's everybody, we're getting reimbursed about $214,000 less than we should on special education costs. We are obligated to educate these children, and they should be educated. They deserve to be educated. They deserve to get as good an education as anybody else in the system.
Sure.
Unfortunately, we were looking for a little bit more help from the state. So you couple that with some extra cases coming in, either by that have moved into town or have been, have been individual educational plans have been created for them, which they again should have. Means that the special ed budget increased by about $600,000 for the town this year. That's a tough nut to crack, and that is going to be in next year's too. So that's a big part of some of the money that is needed in the school department to cover those items.
But education also is a tough thing to deny anyone, because it's so fundamental to the workings of our system.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It is, and I think that everybody who is, it's the great equalizer. There's nothing, that top-notch education is really going to help these students move forward, help our community move forward, help the town move forward, and make the town a much better place for everybody to live in. I think people don't realize that there are a number of English language learners in Wakefield.
Right.
The community is changing. There are people that, deserve to be taught and to be immersed into our system. And that does take extra time and extra expertise and extra money to do.
Sure.
Let alone what you might consider to be, the traditional special ed, challenges that we face as a community. So I think the school department has done a really good job trying to identify these, trying to get the biggest bang for our buck that we can, trying to do collaborative services with other communities. We have the POST program in Wakefield that is for children that have graduated from the high school, 18 to 22, that they get trained, get out into the working world, and it helps them. I should say young adults, not children anymore.
Sure.
And I'm very proud of that. We have did a partnership with Reading in that. We have students from other communities coming in, and we're in the SEAM Collaborative. So there's a lot that has happened around special ed. One thing I'm hearing a lot this year, and I'm kind of on the periphery of it, is that we really would like, a lot of people like to do, what can we do to keep the children in Wakefield and provide services here? In some instances, that may be cheaper. So I think the school department is looking into that as well.
And on that note, unfortunately, we've actually hit the end.
We've hit the
and
end.
gone beyond.
Perfect.
But April 30th,
April
7
30th, 7 p.m.
at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium.
At the Galvin Middle School. Plenty of parking.
Please
Nice
come
seats.
down. Please exercise your right as citizens to determine the town's direction for the next year.
Perfect.
Thank you. We'll see you next month.